warm welcome from Munich, and thank you very much that you're joining our session today. My name is Christian Wagner, and I'm working at attendees as a director in the healthcare and life science practice. Did you know that 70% of our AI projects fail? Honestly, I was completely shocked. And that was the reason why I talked to experts from our network to figure out what are the key success factors for AI projects and to figure out and see in which business units of the value chain of a pharma company is AI already leveraged and used. Also, a warm welcome to our experts in the studio. And before we jump into the details, let's have a look what we have on the menu today. First of all, Jack will give an intro, what is AI, and we'll also share some use cases in the area of sales and marketing. This will roughly take 50 minutes. After that, 10 minutes, Marlon will take over and we'll talk about his insights, how AI can be leveraged in the area of R&D and operations. And last but not least, Max will have a 10-minute speech about his experience, how AI can be leveraged in pharma, and also will have a critical view where the regulations give some, let's say, some boundaries we have to face. In the end, we have planned 20 minutes Q&A session. So if you have a question during the session, please don't hesitate. Send it into the chat. My back office will consolidate it and will hand it into the studio that we later on have the questions. We will answer the questions later on. So for sure, the session will be recorded as well and available on our website. And with that, I will hand it over to Jack. Please introduce yourself and let us know what AI is and what your experience is.
Well, thanks, Chris, for the introduction. So let's start with the question, what is AI, to have everybody on the same page, because I believe everybody here in this webinar has different opinion what AI is. Before I get to that, quick introduction from my side. I'm Jack Lampka. By now, I'm an AI keynote speaker and advisor, focusing on the people aspect of AI adoption. I also written a small guide on how focusing on the data and AI mindset of employees can improve AI adoption. And all that is based on my 6 years in pharma and 21 years in tech, all those 27 years with data and AI, initially as an analyst and later the past 10 years building, leading data teams, developing data strategies and implementing AI solutions in large organizations. And that started after a technical business degree. So let's get to the question, what is AI? AI is machines' ability to perform cognitive functions we associate with human minds. Now, machines are not there yet to fully perform these functions. And there are several cognitive functions that humans possess and machines trying to replicate. Now, to define this a little bit more specifically, there are 3 forms of AI that have been around for a while, plus one recent one that everybody's talking about. Let's start with the one that everybody wants. And with everybody, I mean the tech companies. Artificial general intelligence. This is machines' ability to perform all the functions, all the cognitive functions that humans possess, and maybe even more than that. This is also known as broad AI, and a great example of that today is Arnold Schwarzenegger's Terminator. It's science fiction. You can take any science fiction character because AGI doesn't exist today. What we have, and what we had for a while, is machine learning. This is today's machine's ability to learn from experience, recognize patterns, and this is also called narrow AI. And a great example that has been around for 25 years is Amazon's recommendation system. Similar system used by Netflix, used by Spotify. This is something that has been around for 25 years. The past 10 years, with a growing computing power, with the growing availability of data, deep learning became more useful, which is machines' ability, or at least try to mimic the human's brain's functionality to implement machine learning algorithms. And this is now more advanced way of analyzing data and predicting behaviors. And this is well represented in autonomous driving, where autonomous driving addresses several of those cognitive functions that humans possess. So these three, actually not three, the first one, AGI, doesn't exist, but machine learning, deep learning have been around for a while. Now, the new kid on the block is Gen AI. Generative AI, which builds on neural networks, creating large language models and creating the ability to generate content, text, video, audio, pictures. And everybody probably knows ChatGPT, introduced about 2 years ago, although some of these large language models have been introduced about 5 years ago. So these 4 forms of AI is how AI is defined today. And these forms are not only generate funny pictures, but they actually create business value. McKinsey has estimated, for example, that Gen AI can deliver between 3 and 4 trillion US dollars annually globally to the economy. McKinsey also predicts that machine learning, deep learning, so this traditional AI, can deliver between 11 and 18 trillion US dollars. So 4 times as much as Gen AI. So while today's hype, today's FOMO, fear of missing out, is focusing on Gen AI, companies should keep in mind that this traditional machine learning, deep learning, adding much more value than Gen AI to businesses. Now, how do you ensure you add that value? Well, you have to pay attention because, as Chris said, 70% of AI projects fail. And this is an average from different analysis by Gartner, Deloitte, MIT, Boston Consulting Group. 70% of AI projects fail. While we don't have time today to go why that is the case or go into more details, I'm going to leave you with 3 insights or takeaways how to avoid being part of the 70%. So for one, make sure you always start with business needs. Many times AI projects and companies start from IT, they start with technology, that is then a solution looking for a problem. Start with a problem, start with business need. Second, address company culture. AI, all AI solutions, I'm aware, require employees in the organization to change how they operate, which tools they use, change their workflows. So if the company's culture is not embracing change, it will be difficult to implement AI. So address company culture. And finally, improve data and AI mindset. So keep in mind, employees are the users of AI in your organization. Do they have the right data and AI mindset to use these tools? Will they embrace them? If not, you need to improve that mindset. So that's as a quick intro into AI. Let me switch now to how AI is used in sales and marketing in a pharma setting. And I'm going to focus here on use cases grouped into 4 categories. First, insights about physicians. Second, recommendations for sales reps. Third, resource optimization. And finally, content creation. So for HCP insights, AI can define customer profiles and segments. That's actually one of the first things you should do as a company, understand your customers. And AI can help. AI can answer the question, who are my most important customers and what preferences they have for communication and content. AI can also address the question number of patients treated at each location. And this is a very specific question for pharma companies in Germany or in European countries that have strong regulations, like in Germany, which the regulations doesn't allow pharma companies to have prescription data, how physicians prescribe. But you can model that. You can leverage other data to model that, predict how many patients are treated with our medication. So that's what AI can do. Recommendation for sales reps. The best example is next best action. This is a system similar like Amazon's product recommendation system. Next best action delivers every Monday morning to the sales rep which physicians to address this week through which channels and with which content. That's what AI can do. Differentiation versus competitors is another delivery of AI, addressing the question which competitors are relevant at each location. So this is similar to the number of patients treated at each location, where similar modeling, predictive modeling, can help sales reps to know how to differentiate your products versus competitors. Resource optimization is a general modeling technique that has been available for a long time, has been widely used in many industries, and helps to address the question which marketing and sales channels are most efficient, and how should your company maximize returns on investments from marketing and sales activities. What is the optimal channel mix? So that's what AI can do. These 5 use cases, by the way, are all possible with the traditional AI, machine learning, deep learning. For content creation, this is where Gen AI comes in. And one use case is content customization. And I'm picking here use cases that are avoiding potential issues that we still have with Gen AI, like hallucination. This is content customization, where you take existing marketing material and modify it to your customer segments you have created anyway. So you can take existing content and modify it for each individual customer segment instead of rewriting the content through people, through content creators. This is what AI can help you with. And last use case here is avatar videos. Every company, either for internal training or maybe videos, training videos for its customers, creates content that is often used in a video format because it's more intuitive. You can convey better information across a video format, and you can use AI avatars to create a content in one language and then easily translate that and create a according video in another language. So this is particularly useful for international companies. So with these 7 use cases, some examples of where AI can help, and over the past 6 years, I've implemented 6 out of the 7. The 7th one was more challenging due to internal company regulations. I can address that which one in a question session. Before I switch over, let me share with you the don'ts and do's. I already mentioned some at the beginning, but one of the clear recommendations out there for you: don't start without clear business commitments. You need to bring the business side to commit to using AI. So you can develop greatest AI solution and implement it. If nobody's going to use it, it won't be successful. So define clear usage goals. Bring in the business users into that definition stage. Make them own the business goals. So for example, next best action, we actually brought in our business stakeholders, sales managers, who together with us define the usage calls, and they own the usage calls. Usage calls being the percentage of sales reps using that next best action. The second recommendation, do not expect automatic acceptance and adoption. Do not expect that you develop something, a tool, make it available to your business stakeholders and they will be using it. No, it won't happen. In addition to a typical product development plan, you also need to define a marketing plan. A marketing plan will include things like data storytelling, which is an effective way to communicate the benefits of data and AI solutions to business stakeholders. And finally, I'm going to repeat myself because I believe this is a strong and critical component of success with AI. Do not start with technology. Start with business needs. Ensure that you define the problem, the business problem that the company is facing, and then identify how that can be addressed with data and AI, and only then comes technology. And sometimes you may realize we already have the technology in place. We don't need to implement or buy new technology. So always start with business needs. So with that, I'm going to hand back to Chris.
Jack, thank you very much for this insightful information. So this was very, very valuable. So, and I see already a few questions are coming in. So keep the ball rolling, bring in the questions. We will try to answer as many as possible. Then for the next part, Marlon, thanks that you're coming today. So please introduce yourself and give us your insight and experience how you see that AI is leveraged in R&D and operations.
Thanks for having me. Before diving into AI applications in pharma R&D and manufacturing, I would just give a brief intro about myself. I'm a consultant with background in business development for AI solutions in the pharmaceutical industry. Particularly, I've worked in AI portfolio management, recently launched also generative AI solutions, which has become an important topic over the last 1 to 2 years. And what's always important in this area is to keep in mind that AI solutions in pharma must comply with the regulations in pharma. And this is an aspect which needs to be taken into account at very early stage already in the implementation and planning process. My educational background is in physics. I did a PhD in electrochemical engineering and recently finished an executive MBA with a final thesis on success factors of AI adoption in the pharmaceutical industry. Looking at pharma R&D, the big main challenge is that it takes about 12 years development time and about $2 billion costs to develop one drug. And this drug development process mainly splits into 2 parts. It is on the left, the discovery and drug optimization part, and on the right-hand side, the clinical development. And the costs and the time to market split up into 70% for the clinical development, while only 30% for the discovery part. On the left, the discovery part, of course, it's the main goal to invent enhanced therapies. And AI can help here by multiple opportunities, for example, improving the analytics of omics data, understanding better how genes are correlated, how proteins are correlated, and how genes correlate with proteins. Also, AI can predict protein properties, for example, their structures, and to identify binding sites on the proteins for potential drugs. This is also an interesting example because this shows that not everything needs to be done from scratch, or maybe nothing needs to be done from scratch at all in terms of AI models, because for protein folding predictions, there are, for example, multiple models already on the market, productionized on cloud service platforms like AWS or also Azure. In terms of drugs, AI can help predict the drug properties. That is something that has traditionally been done purely in the lab and is now more and more done in silico. So accelerating the drug development process and in the end improving the time to market. The time to market is a very important aspect in pharmaceutical industry because faster time to market in the end means a more competitive market position for the company for one specific drug on the market. And when it comes to patent protection, even more important because patent protection starts usually very early in the drug development process, still takes all the development time, and faster time to market then means larger time of patent protection after market launch of a drug, which can highly increase the revenue for pharmaceutical companies. So time to market, of course, because the 70% ratio is highly important in clinical development as well, same as reducing the large costs in clinical trials. AI can help here, for example, by identifying the right patients at the right sites, that means the right hospitals, to be eligible for one specific clinical trial. Also to predict the adverse effects, maybe predicting adverse effects before they're actually seen in the recorded data of the clinical trials. Generally, it's quite important to continuously monitor the clinical studies. For example, also to monitor the sites, what's happening at the sites. This can be more and more monitored remotely in future with the help of AI, and less effort is needed in people staying present at the sites. Important topic rising over the last years is also virtual trials, specifically in terms of synthetic patient data that can be generated by generative AI. And as everywhere in the pharmaceutical industry, there are a lot of documents to be written, and generative AI can help and assist in improving the quality of the documents, having better regulatory submissions, and also having faster submission processes, which in the end both increases or better say accelerates the time to market and reduce the cost. Looking at pharmaceutical manufacturing, AI can help increase the efficiency and therefore reduce the costs, mainly through automation. So we have seen before in R&D, there are a lot of external applications dedicated to patients, to hospitals, to partners. In manufacturing, it's a lot about reducing the costs in internal processes. The manufacturing ecosystem has many different aspects to be taken into account. For example, the IT and OT systems, which record all the process data. Then the processes themselves, of course, which need to be well defined in pharma. Also the people, very important, who are working in manufacturing. Or the regulatory and compliance aspects. The assets, so the machines themselves and the documentation of everything. AI can help increase the efficiency in various ways within this manufacturing ecosystem. For example, in production planning, because usually it's the case that several drugs are manufactured on the same production line, and all this needs to be planned, needs to be scheduled. One needs to react, for example, on spontaneous outages of specific assets or of an entire production line. Then AI can also help exploit the IT and OT systems data, so the process data, to optimize the processes themselves. This is particularly important in biopharmaceutical engineering because there small fluctuations in the process data already results in high changes of the final product. Procurement optimization is an important topic, also in context with production planning, of course. It's important to have the right raw materials in place at the right time and also for optimized costs. And having so many people working in manufacturing, there's also a lot of knowledge. People coming in, people coming out, there might be knowledge drain. Also, there might be knowledge silos within some people groups. And nowadays, knowledge management systems gathering all this knowledge in one IT system and making the knowledge accessible via AI, for example, large language models, so generative AI, can help to access all the knowledge gathered through the times in manufacturing. Important aspect is, again, as in pharma R&D, the documents which need to be written and submitted to regulatory authorities. And again, generative AI can help in improving the documents, accelerating the authoring process of the documents. For example, also by getting data, for example, from knowledge management systems into the documents more automatically, automating manual tasks, and then accelerating the processes, reducing costs through automation. Maintenance planning, another important aspect, being correlated also to other sections like production planning, procurement optimization. There might be spontaneous outages. So again, for example, knowledge management systems can provide specific actions for maintenance to workers. Last but not least, manufacturing costs are largely governed still by the energy costs. And this problem might increase in future. And there are multiple opportunities how AI can help optimize the energy consumption, in the end reducing the overall costs in manufacturing. With that, I would like to hand over to Chris again.
Yeah, Marlon, thank you very much for these insights. So I see the questions coming, so there will be a few nice ones to answer. But before we start with that, so we will have now our last part. Max will, share with us his insights, the challenges he is seeing in AI in the pharma operations.
Thank you very much, Chris, and thank you, Atrius, for having me. So I'm Max Pinker. I'm an independent consultant and interim manager working in pharmaceuticals. My focus is on complex change projects, for example, organization and process optimizations, culture change, and also, very importantly, digital transformations. When we are looking at the pharmaceutical industry, and there specifically into manufacturing and quality, which I combine in the word operations, this is a sector that's in digitalization lagging behind other industries. Why is that? I show you now the most important reason for that. When you're having a specific process in pharmaceutical operations, you must do it in a way that is compliant. So if you are having it done by an employee, you need to train that employee so that the employee is qualified and that it's compliant if that employee is performing this task. On the other hand, when you're using a computer system, you first have a black box. You do not exactly know what is happening in this software. So what can you do? You can test this software, whether it is doing what it's intended to. And you do that by a validation. And this is more complex in pharmaceuticals than in other industries because, obviously, of the risk that mistakes can lead to with regard to the customers. When you're performing a validation, you have a validated computer system, which is now compliant to use for a process step. Now I'm writing here classic non-AI in contrast to AI. What do I mean by that? When you're having a classic computer system, a non-AI computer system, I mean you can predict what will be the result. You have a specific input, and based on this input, you can expect exactly a specific result. If not exactly this result comes out, well, then something is wrong with the system. On the other hand, if you are having an AI computer system, this is also a black box, but it's a bit different because you can't assume, you can't presume, you can't predict the result. If you're asking, for example, ChatGPT a specific question today and the same question in 1 month, the answer will not be the same. So how can you use this black box in a compliant manner? Right now, this is a problem that's not solved because you right now can't validate such a system. There's no idea yet how this could be done for GMP purposes. So I now want to go a bit into challenges and opportunities in operations. First, as just pointed out, a big challenge are regulatory requirements, especially with regard to qualification validation. Therefore, you right now can't use AI to perform existing process steps. Also, current AI is still limited. You must always remember we do not have a general AI yet. So every AI we are right now having is very specialized for a specific purpose. And I want to give one specific example for that. ChatGPT is obviously for generating text, and it's very good in that regard. But because it is very good in that, it can also trick you into believing it might be good at other things. For example, recently I asked it whether it was good at chess, and it was bragging, but actually when I tested it, well, at some point it was starting to perform illegal moves or using pieces that were not on the board. Harmless, but this is a harmless example. If you would instead have relied on this, for example, for release of pharmaceutical production batches, well, then it's obviously not harmless if something goes wrong. So always keep in mind that AI right now is specialized, only use it for what it's intended to. Also, always a challenge with hype topics, they are easily overrated. Right now, AI is obviously the #1 hype topic in the industry. Companies are throwing money at this topic, often without having a clear plan. As Jack pointed out, you must first understand what do you want to use it for? Does it really make sense? But there are also opportunities. And as my two colleagues pointed out, AI can very well support in the creation of texts and speed up work there. For example, if you are creating a standard operating procedure, this can be much faster using an AI. And not just that, the text in the end can also be much better. If an AI is reviewing your text, it can be much easier to be read by the reader. So you are not only saving time on the end of the creator, but also on the side of the reader, maybe speeding up, for example, training. Also, although AI usually can't perform existing process steps, it may be very applicable to perform additional parallel process steps, which so far would have needed humans to do it, but would not have been done because it would have been too expensive. Maybe there AI can be a pretty good idea. And also, maybe the most important point, the limitations of AI development are not clear yet. What I'm telling you now is valid as of today. It may be wrong in 10 years, and maybe in 20 or 30 years, it might be entirely wrong. So you always need to stay up to date, be curious, be open-minded, but stay critical and pragmatic. Thank you.
Max, thank you very much for these insights. That was very helpful, and I see more questions are coming in. So let's fire it up, start our discussion internally. So my first question is towards, Jack, you shared, the do's and don'ts why AI projects fail. So for me, the trigger is somehow, how do you make sure, or where to start with, let's say, the AI mindset in a company? Where to start with? What would be your recommendation here?
With everybody.
Okay, so you mean we need to start at the top, or where do we start?
So let's break it down. I would go pragmatically. So I would identify potentially maybe one use case, a few use cases, and identify who the users of that AI solutions should be. So if you implement something in sales, you should ensure that the sales reps have the right data and AI mindset. You can develop a data literacy program. So that's what I write about in this guide. And that data literacy program can focus on that small group, and then it can expand over time, because at the end, everybody in the organizations should have some level of data mindset. Let's forget AI. Let's simply using data, whether it's a new dashboard that centralizes some insights. that may also be challenged in the organization if there is not the right data mindset. But don't forget the executives. They need to have, of course, that mindset. They need to understand what value AI is adding to the business goals. How is AI improving revenues or reducing costs? If they don't have that mindset, they potentially should be part of that data literacy program. Because at the end, they will drive whether data and AI is accepted in the organization.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's always,
Yeah.
if the leaders are not convinced, most likely the project will fail. That's basically
Right.
in any project. So, and you mentioned one expression that got my attention, hallucination. So, I mean, usually hallucination I only know when I drink whatever, 3 or 4 more beer at the Oktoberfest, or maybe do something different. So what do you mean exactly with hallucination?
So this is now a term applied to Gen AI, to the AI chatbots, ChatGPT and others, where, as Max said, when you ask a question today and a month later, you get different answers. So that may not be even yet called hallucination, but it kind of indicates how Gen AI solutions are coming up with an answer that is not based on the context that somebody is asking, but based on probability of words following other words. And that probability will be always different depending on when you ask a question or depending on the word in your prompt. Hallucination is basically when ChatGPT comes up with content that doesn't exist. So there are many cases, one with lawyers that have been sued of using ChatGPT to create a case with examples of past cases that ChatGPT invented. So that's one example of hallucination.
Yeah, so I mean, that's brutally, for the industry, right? If you use it wrong, in the wrong way, that will have a high impact.
Yeah, and in any company, that hallucination problem is not solved today. So every company using ChatGPT or other tools for creating new content or getting insights that ChatGPT knows should be careful because it may hallucinate.
So, and how could a company solve that problem right now?
That's probably a question for its own session about large language models. So all the large language models providers, OpenAI, Facebook, and all others, Anthropic, who develop these models, they're trying to solve that because that's limiting the use in a business setting in particular.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not an expert in that, so I won't get into how this problem could be solved.
Okay, so then you said one thing. I mean, there were 2 questions from Ryan and Claudia, because we made the bold statement: 70% of AI projects fail. So, and the question is, do we have statistics on idea how many or how is the percentage for in the pharma industry? Because I think the data we have is more all over cross industry. So there was the question, that if we have industry specific data, what the percentage of AI projects failure in pharma would be.
Yeah, I've not seen that specific by industry. All this research I shared, they evaluate in general across many industries, across many companies. But one thing to keep in mind, and I would not expect this to be different for pharma, is that we have the technology, and even pharma has the data. I was surprised, by the way, when I joined my last company, how much data we had and how little of that was being used. So the data is the technology, it's the people that are the biggest driver of those 70%. People, the users, the developers, but also the executives.
Yeah, and we also got another question from Claudia coming in, asking about the content creation. So how can compliance regulations be ensured for content creations? What is your experience? What have you seen there?
Well, maybe I'll address the one of these use cases that I wasn't able to successfully implement because internal compliance. That's thanks for the question. So creating content in pharma requires whole chain of compliance steps and reviews. Several people involved, systems involved, and when there is new content created, every piece of content needs to go through that. Now, if you have a one marketing material that is approved, now you want to create versions of that for different customer segments. Current limitations, internally imposed limitations in the companies prevent that to be done efficiently, because if you modify one word in that content, it has to go through the entire review process. And if you modify the content that is one focused on physicians that are very scientifically oriented, one similar content focused on physicians that are more patient oriented, these will be different content pieces, although addressing the same message. But unfortunately, in the current compliance setup, that will go through the same review process, so you won't save much time. And this is a challenge that companies should address and modify the compliance processes.
Yeah. Well, do you have an opinion on that?
That's a perfect example, I think, because one can showcase two basic principles for the application of AI. First is, of course, the decisions, as you say, must remain with the humans, right? And if the decisions, if the content review remains with humans, then one has less problems with, let's say, validation in the end. And second is also, particularly for generative AI, I think that's my experience, generative AI solutions must fit the processes. Makes no sense that generative AI, after the review process, again proposes something else. It must fit the process. Generative AI content creation must come before, then comes the review process, and then there needs to be stop as it was before applying generative AI. And making a match between generative AI and process, making that fit, there comes the efficiency increase.
Although I have a slightly different view, because all the processes we have the organization are based on the old software paradigm, where there is a predicted outcome, and the software used in these processes is understood, and the processes were built based on that. Yeah. Now using Gen AI, now we have a different input into that process. I would ask, is the current process as defined today still fitting that? But you're right, Gen AI solutions or outcome should be embedded in existing process, because that ensures humans oversight. But the question is the existing process really fitting that?
Yeah, one can adapt the process. That's fine, and maybe this results in further efficiency increase. Yeah.
And with regard to GxP regulations, in case this kind of compliance was asked for, it's quite simple. The process stays the same, and AI there is not an additional actor, a creator or reviewer. It's actually just a tool. Yeah. Just limited to that.
Okay. Good. Then we have another question from Martin. So, a very interesting one. So, is there a copyright commitment for customers from the AI service provider?
Very important question.
Yes. The context, so I need to put in context, is about Gen AI, copyright, because the other traditional AI solutions don't create new content.
Gen AI, so Gen AI. Yeah, it's a copyright commitment for customers from the AI service provider,
Yeah, there should be. That should be possible that also on AWS, on Azure, the data stays with the company and does not leave the company. It's super important. Yeah.
I understood the question slightly different. So as a ChatGPT creating content, what's the copyright situation?
Yeah, belongs it to the client or to the AI service provider? So
I just happened to attend this morning a webinar by an AI lawyer, who clearly stated content created by large language models like ChatGPT doesn't have any copyrights.
Okay.
So because a human is not involved in that content creation, there is no copyrights associated with content generated by ChatGPT.
I must add to that because I was part of such a discussion a while ago, and this is the case for Germany. In Germany, an AI can't be a creator.
EU. EU.
In the EU, okay. But in other countries in the rest of the world, this can be different.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then I have another question here, and I think, Jack, that might goes in your direction again. So regarding next best action, it was mentioned that acceptance and commitment of the business, for example, sales managers, is critical. Any experience or best practice, how acceptance could be expanded to cover the sales reps, since this is probably most important.
Okay, let me clarify. I didn't only mean sales managers. My point was sales managers, so the top level in a sales org structure should own the goals. But of course, you need to convince the users, sales reps. And what we did a couple of things. We created a data competence program, data literacy program. We showed through different tools how AI, how next best action can improve the daily activities of the sales rep. We brought a sales rep into our development team. So sales rep was actually part of the developers who developed the solution. So the data scientists also learned how a sales rep operates daily. So it's kind of an exchange of learning each other's ways of working. And definitely sales reps need to be convinced of the benefits of an AI solution. And I call this answering the question for everybody, what's in it for me? What's in it for me as in, what benefit will I gain, I as a sales rep, of using that?
So if you say, it's obvious, right? Include the end user within the project, yeah? Make them basically your biggest fan. So in terms of the sales reps, what was basically the sales rep? Was it a top performer, a mid performer, or a low performer? Which kind of sales reps did you include and why?
Well, this was all volunteer basis, and we got, I wouldn't say top low performer, but somebody who is keen on using data, is keen on using digital tools in their work. So somebody, we actually did this over time. Over time, we had actually 3 different sales reps joining our development team, and all of them were relatively new to the company, relatively young in the sense that they were open to using what they use in daily lives, like everybody's using AI in daily lives, in private lives. And some people do that also in business, some hesitate doing that in the work life. So these were those who are keen on and interested in actually helping develop a solution that would work for them.
Okay. And then I think we do have questions here from Bernd. So Marlon, it goes more in your direction. So for what kind of drugs are $2 billion costs relevant? So what the example you brought, I think it's it's an average statement, what we see in the industry, 12 years of time, and on average 2 billion. So, but my question towards that would be, you pointed out, if we think about 2 billion, that's a lot of money. So if we just would save a few percentage, that might have a huge impact in terms of cost and also time to market. So based on your experience, like we have, I think, remember correctly, 70% was more the clinical development. From your experience, what is the average gain you could get in terms of saving? Do you have any percentages you have seen in practice?
Yeah, in terms of savings, first number, average number depends, of course. One usually reads between 1 billion and a bit more than 2. And savings, I think AI strategies in these areas should face savings around 20% on average. Can be higher, can be much higher for specific use cases as well. But this should be a rough estimate, rough number. And in the end, as you say, ends up in always multi-million-dollar opportunities because of these high costs per drug only. And I don't know whether there was a question on revenue. Yeah, revenue, or where a big pharma at least wants to focus on also in the drug development process is to develop these blockbusters, right? With, which also then generate multi-billions per year in revenue afterwards because so many drug development processes also fail. And the revenue potential is huge. And in the end, one also gets to the situation where there's a typical example, Humira, for example, from AbbVie, was one blockbuster on the market and market leader. And last year, I think in 2023, further similar drugs came on the market. And then, of course, revenue decreased drastically. And AbbVie has a challenge to bring different products on the market to ensure their revenue line.
Yeah. So there's an interesting question from coming up. So I think it's relevant for all of us. It's a really the major challenge with pharma companies right now is to understand if they want to take the risk of building AI products and endure the teething pains that comes with switching to new technologies. So question is, how do we solve this? How can we help these pharma companies to overcome potentially this risk or this fear, saying, okay, teeth are hurting, we need to go over it, but if I want to have a quicker time to market to develop a new blockbuster, if I don't do it, maybe my competitor will do it, and I don't know, and even maybe Amazon is doing it. So how do we overcome that? What is your opinion on that?
I think it's about the core business in the end. Every company, not only pharma companies, must be aware what is their core business. And core business, also talking about AI, is completely different for tech companies and pharma companies. Usually pharma companies want to invent therapies to sell them. And thinking about this core business, how to improve the core business, how to make the core business more profitable, then one gets to data usage in pharma and being at the data discussion, then one comes to AI. And I think if this mindset evolves around the core business, then the acceptance rate will increase.
Yeah, I think so as well. You can't, switch from one hand to the other. So it needs to be evolved step by step, and you need to build up the trust within an organization with the users. If it's the sales reps or the scientists or people in operations, they need to have the trust, the confidence that this will help to save, let's say, time and gain more efficiency. Yeah.
I would rephrase the question, because it's not about where AI can be used. What's your business problem? Is the business problem that you can solve with data and potentially an AI solution? And is it worth for you to invest that to gain more revenue or reduce expenses? Pharma companies have been, in general, slower adopters of technology. And if you look at different industries, you see the tech companies, you see banking, maybe later you see fast-moving consumer goods implementing AI solutions 20, 30 years ago. And I'm not talking only about Gen AI. And now pharma companies realizing, oh yes, the potential could be Amazon taking over the engagement with patients even, or with physicians. So now pharma companies realize, oh, maybe we should use this AI thing, but it's don't start with technology and see how it can fit in your business. Start with the business problem. In R&D, is there potential to reduce that to $2 billion investments? Or in marketing, is it potential to optimize your marketing sales allocation? Start with the business problem.
Yeah, that's a good point. And we do have another question here from Martin. What about grounding the AI system on valid data? Is this comparable with training the employee?
No, it's not, because you still do not 100% understand the decision process within the AI. An employee also can ask you questions on it. There is some sort of a dialogue. This is much more difficult with an AI because an AI, at least as of now, will not tell you if it has no clue what you're telling it. It will just give you bad results. And the more complicated a topic is, and especially if it's going into the topic of data, which humans generally have a problem entirely comprising, especially when it's going into big data. I mean, I don't know anyone who really understands big data and just gives you a result. If you're using an AI for that and you get a result, there is basically no way to make sure that the given result is really valid, even if the data was valid.
Yeah. So we come slowly to an end, but we do have two other questions. We might be able to quickly answer them. So, and one is very interesting as well from Niels. How can we successfully address the safety concerns pharma companies have? They all want to venture into AI, but are super worried that their data is not secure and used by others. So, how do we overcome that hurdle?
It's not even an AI question, right? It's,
It's a very general question, yes.
it's a data question. But I think maybe there might be other perspective. But usually how it works in pharma is that pharma have, big pharma, let's talk about big pharma. They usually have cloud service providers and rely on AWS or on Azure, have also their data ecosystem built about around service provider. Can be AWS, can be Azure, can be also other providers, more specifically in the value chain like manufacturing. There are also data management systems, Oracle as well, for example. And in the end, it's then also with the service providers and the contracting to ensure that data is kept private with the pharma companies. And this is the current state. And as usual in IT security, there's always a risk, but essentially the latest technology is designed such that data is kept private. But one needs to think also the other way. Would be very very beneficial for the entire industry to more collaboratively share data. That's the discussion in the
It's
other
a
direction.
good point because you just bring it up with sharing data, right? Because we are so concerned about our data, and in private life we share a lot of data. Yeah, just think, what people share during the Oktoberfest. But there's also a question coming up from what was it? Give me a second. Yeah, from Rainer. All AI and pharma biotech rely on valid and big number of data sets. Is the pharma world start sharing these data, or basically who are the stakeholders of these data? So, I mean, if you look back in your company career, what you guys have seen, who is the owner of the data, and who can make that basically, exchangeable? How do we bring it on a different level?
This goes into, this is like its own topic of data governance. So, which is more about who define data owners for different data elements in the company. So there is a better understanding what data is available in the company. Although I'm not sure if that question was going in that direction or was meant, maybe meant something else.
Yeah, and so there's another one I wanted to bring up. I've seen quickly. So there is a paid version of ChatGPT where you can disable the use of data from training for training purposes. So what is your experience on that, or your recommendation for companies? Do it.
Yeah,
okay.
I turn it off.
Good. So with that, gentlemen, thank you very much for your contribution to that session. It was a pleasure to have you in our studio. And also to all the attendees out there, thank you very much for all the questions. I think we couldn't cover all of them, but we tried to stay within an hour limit of basically your lunch break. So we do hope you enjoyed your lunch with us. And yeah, please leave any feedback. The feedback link will be provided via the chat. It was a pleasure, and just give us some feedback if you like these kind of sessions and which other topics you might want to see in the future. From that, we say goodbye from Munich and see you back soon. Bye.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.